Hi, I'm Brady Calhoun. Welcome to this 13 Now special presentation. Joining me is Superintendent Bill Husfelt, who surprised us this week and announced that he'll be retiring on July 31st. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Brady.
How are you doing?
Doing very well. How about you?
It's another day, another dollar. Why now?
The stars just aligned right. We were setting and trying to figure out where we were with the FEMA process, where we are with some of the big projects we've got going on, the schools, the challenges they've got going on, and the new legislation and what we were going to do. We're planning out for the next year and the year after that. And we had accomplished some of the things that we decided 4 years ago we wanted to get done. And then there are some things that we couldn't get done in the next 5, 10 years, FEMA being the biggest one. Mm-hmm. And so I know that there's going to be people decide that they want to run for this office. And I think that it's about time for me to step aside and let someone else take over. I've been doing this 41 years. I've been superintendent going on, finishing up my 15th year in that. I just think it's time. I think everybody knows when it's time for them to stop doing something and start something new, and I think that's where I am with my life.
Bill, I don't know if you know this, but there's some people out there that have been critical of you, over the years. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, they've had.
Are you sure?
They've had some things to say.
I'm shocked and hurt at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's true, I want to ask you some things, some of the things that these people have brought up, some of the things that you yourself have answered before. So, the first thing is this investigation that is investigation into Lynn Haven. Now they've made the FBI and federal prosecutors have sent the school district some subpoenas. Has that investigation influenced your decision to retire?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. I didn't even consider it. One of the things I would like is for the whole thing to be over with and all be resolved. But I feel very confident that once everything is resolved with the situation they're dealing with in Lynn Haven, everything else is going to come to light that they found nothing with the district. I mean, we have not heard from them since we gave them the last request, which was 3 years or plus ago. I can't remember how long ago. They haven't requested anything else. And so, there's nothing there. And I can keep saying, here's what I'd like to do. And I'm not a betting man, but I'd like to have like a little wager. For anybody that thinks they're going to find something, I'll wager them a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And so anybody that wants to put that up, I'd put that out there, and that I'll buy you one if they come back with anything to me, and if not, then you get me one. I could eat for a long time on that one, but there's just nothing there, right? And I just. I'm going to be very candid with you. We're having a very candid conversation.
Sure. Yeah, please.
It hurts when people keep bringing it up because I know I haven't done anything wrong, and your word should be worth something. And it bothers me that people think I would do something like that.
Well, I mean, and let me just say.
No, you're asking a good question. Yeah, I'm just saying.
No, I'm not. I'm not defending myself or anything. But let me just say, there was a search warrant, as you know. You had a news conference about it that mentioned you in it.
I don't know if it was a search warrant. There was a request for some documents or something. But
it was you and George Gaynor, and it made some claims about.
It made one claim.
Made a claim,
and I have talked to some authorities, and they apologized that shouldn't even have been released. It was one person that made a statement that they heard that somebody was at Husfelt's house doing work. I mean, it was
a friend of a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
And it ends up in a federal document. Right?
And I know, and the people that were working with the federal document apologized to me that was never supposed to be released. And there's nothing to it. I even had my neighbor, and I can't remember if you and I had this conversation because I don't want to spend most time talking about this, but my neighbor, even when he says, those guys weren't from around here. They were from, I can't remember now, either Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, or something. But the company that we got, they just came in from out of town like everybody else did that was doing all the work.
Yeah, I mean, you said at the time that you didn't let local companies do work at your house.
No, I didn't have any local companies do any work at my house at all. None.
All right. And I mean, finally, the last thing is that GAC and Derwin White have been sort of a big part of the defense. James Finch and Margot Anderson's attorneys have pointed to them as being the real criminals, that kind of thing. And GAC, I believe, did plenty of work for the school system. Am I correct? So, I mean, in your dealings with GAC and in the school system's dealings with GAC, did you ever find that anything was illegal or improper or improperly done? Are there any employees that you had to counsel, had any concerns about their connections with GAC?
No, and I can't say this more emphatically. Derwin nor any of his team or employees or anybody, we never had to counsel any of them. They never asked me or anybody that I know of to do anything immoral, unethical, or illegal. Everything was above board. And our policies are so strict and structured. And, one of our school board members the other day was telling me he's now understands our policies more and the procedures we have to go through. And I could name 6 companies in town we do business with, just like we did with GAC. And I want to say this because I don't know if any of Derwin's family's watching this. I mean, I truly feel sorry that Derwin's being dragged through the mud and all this and can't even defend himself or say anything. Derwin was a good friend, a nice guy. I never had anything bad to say about Derwin. He was always so helpful whenever we had needs for Christmas things for kids or any kind of project to help the Title I schools or anything. And he would always do anything like that we would ask, like most of the businesses around town would. And so I just I don't have anything bad to say about any of them. I mean, I think the truth will come out. I really do. And that's why we have courts and judges and investigators and the FBI and all that. I mean, I have total faith in the process.
All right. Is there anything else on this topic you want to say?
Can we quit talking about it?
Yeah, we're going to move on.
I'm just teasing. I mean, I know it's a legitimate question. I just it just blows my mind that it originated by somebody saying they heard somebody said that there were people working at my house. I mean, that's what started that whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair. So what year did you start in the Bay District school system?
Well, actually, I started in 81. I started subbing. I graduated from FSU in 1980 and interned at Rutherford in 1980 and graduated in 1980. But then the following school year, 80 and 81, I started substitute teaching in the district. I couldn't get a teaching job. I had several interviews and couldn't get a job. And then I was married on August 14th, 1982, and started my first job on August 16th at,
What were we paying starting teachers in 1982?
Oh, man. I was making a lot of money. That's all I remember. I was making good money for a fresh out of college student.
How different is the school system of 1982 versus the school system of 2022?
I don't think as different as it should be. I don't think we've evolved. Education doesn't evolve. Public education and elementary and secondary doesn't evolve quickly enough like they probably should. But the biggest change, and I'm going to twist your question, what's been the biggest change? It's the home life of the kids. I mean, you take the opioid and the opiate and the marijuana addiction, alcohol addiction, and I want to ask your listeners out there, how many of them out there, and they can raise their hands and we'll know what they all did, how many of them out there have a friend or a family member that's raising a child that's not theirs? And that is, it's overwhelming in our society right now. And so the homes that these children, so many of them are living in, are so upside down and so much turmoil that we have to deal with them at school. And that's why our mental health issues and challenges, the student wellness is off the charts, and why we have so many discipline issues, so many more than we've ever had before. And look, I've always said God doesn't make a bad baby. I mean, God doesn't. But we as adults can mess kids up better than anything in the world. And that's what's happened. I think our children have more challenges and problems in their lives than ever before. And that directly impacts what we're able to do in the classroom with these children.
How soon did you move into administration, and when did you become principal?
You know, people are going to die laughing at this. I'm going to tell you something that I don't talk about very publicly, but in 1993, I was supposed to go to Atlanta to have an interview with the FBI. I've got a minor in criminology.
Right.
And I knew that I could not continue in the career I was in and support my family the way I wanted to. So I started looking at my options. And I was supposed to go for an interview with the FBI, because the FBI doesn't want you right out of college. They want you to have they want you a little bit older.
Sure.
And so Larry Bollinger came to me and said, look, you really need to think about getting into administration. And at the time, FSU had just started the master's degree program here in Panama City. And so I started in 93, graduated in 96, and got my first administrative position in 93. I started in 90. Started 90. That's it. I started the program in 90, graduated in 93, and got my first administrative job in 93.
Now,
the years kind of blend together when you.
yeah, they do. I've always heard high school principal is a pretty great job. What was that like for you? You were principal of Mosley, right?
I was principal for 12 years. It was just simply amazing. But I had some great teachers. I mean, Ernest Spiva was the best role model anybody could ever have about being an administrator, and Fred Goodwin. I got to work with both of them, and that was a true blessing. And just a lot of other people inspired and guided me. I had great teachers and coaches growing up, and then I got to work with. But I tell everybody the highlight of my career was being the principal when all three of my girls went through high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. All three of them, I was their principal, and that was fun. That was you can't pay to have that much fun.
What possessed you to want to be superintendent?
First of all, I'm not possessed, but
what I mean, it's a heck of a job, you know.
Well, I've always been intrigued by politics and political stuff. I'm one of the nerds that sits up and watches the conventions. I love the presidential conventions. I sit up and watch those, and I've always been interested in politics. And I was a high school senior and supported and campaigned for Pete Holman when he ran for superintendent, and campaigned for many other superintendents over the years. Then I just decided it was about time to try something new, and I thought I could make a difference. And so in 2008, I ran, and be careful what you ask for. I might have been possessed after that. Yeah, that's probably when the possession came.
I mean, and that leads into my next question. What do you discover when you become superintendent that you really can't express or explain to people who haven't done the job? You walk into a job like that, there are a lot of jobs, and people think it's one thing, and you find out, well, also I got to deal with all of this.
Well, it's so deep and so wide. I mean, people don't understand the depth of this position. And I get people that are critical. You're an educator. You shouldn't be managing a $500 million budget, and and you shouldn't do this. You should do that. I'm gonna tell you this: there are good decisions, bad decisions, and then everybody else will tell you what you should have done. And
hindsight's always
and that's why people get upset. If you're in a position long enough, you're going to make almost everybody mad, because you're going to make a decision that they don't think you should have made. And I will always, and I think my staff understands this, principals understand this, I'm always going to make the decision I think is the best decision for the students and for the community. Sometimes they don't align, though. And you haven't asked me this, but I'm going to share it anyway. And this will get some people commenting and fussing and everything. I think the thing I regret the most is not convincing the citizens of Bay County to have the millage just like they have over in Walton County, to pay the teachers more and to support people more. That got so sideways and so mistreated and so much misinformation. Until we understand in our community that our employees that are taking on probably one of the hardest jobs there is, except for probably first responders and law enforcement, teaching our children, we have got to up the game in what we pay all those employees. And the governor's done a great job to date, but we've got to do more. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing that I was not able to accomplish. And like I said, if I'd stayed another year, I'm still not going to be able to accomplish that. I mean, that and FEMA, I think, are the two most frustrating things I've dealt with over the years.
Let me ask you, because the criticism of that I've heard in a couple of places, and I also am the son of a teacher. So even long before you were superintendent, I've heard the gripes of a teacher. Mm-hmm. And one of them is that, well, all of the money that comes to the school district is kept for high-level positions at the district, right? Like, you have all of these folks at the top levels, and you're paying them all this money, and that money should go to teachers. And then the part two of that is just, I think people, anytime you go to people and you go, give me a, please let's do some kind of tax increase or sales tax or whatever, they will come back at you and say, well, isn't your budget big enough? And aren't you just not spending your money the correct way, whatever they think the correct way is? What would you say to those things?
They don't understand the budget. And that's the thing with school funding and finance. It's a $500 million budget, but almost everything's categorical. And so much of that was insurance from the hurricane, and so much of what we have, we can't use for salaries. And I will tell you this, there are reports that the state puts out every year. And what they do is they rank all 67 counties, and they'll tell you what your spending ratio is on even maintenance, what your spending ratio is on electricity and water, and in comparison to other ones, square footage cost, personnel, how much you spend on students and all that. And I'll tell you, we're right there with everybody. We're all the same across the board. You know, it's easy to throw a dart and say, yeah, that's what's happening. Most of the people at the Nelson Building, especially, as you said, the higher salary people, are all categorical. They're Title I, Title IV, Title IX. Their food
in that you
service.
have to hire them and you have to pay them.
Those funds are federal dollars that have to be spent in those programs, and those programs have to operate and function a certain way, and you have to have people that run them, and that's what.
Even if you wanted to,
I could fire them, and I still couldn't get that money to the teachers. I mean, and see, that's the misunderstanding that most people that they can't comprehend. They think, and we get the same thing about the half-cent sales tax. Mm-hmm. Take that half-cent sales tax and give them. We can't. That money cannot be used for salaries. The money that we get, there's several parts of the tax rolls that only can be used for construction projects. And that money, no matter if we did not build another school forever, we can't touch that money that is for construction and for buses and those kind of things. We can't take that money and give it to teachers for salaries. It's not allowed. And that's the hard conversation to convince people and to explain to people that it's just not allowed to be done. It's the law. And so we're not going to violate the law. We're going to do what we're supposed to with it. But it's what I wish people would do would look at all the other counties around us that do have that extra millage to pay their employees that do it.
Let me ask a question that's going to get me yelled at by some teachers.
I promise I won't yell at you.
Yeah, thanks. But you know, if we're paying teachers, I think 46, 47 coming out of college.
Little
right?
over 47.5 is the starting salary, but now that goes up to like year 15, I think, right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you were to pay teachers 50,000 or 55, are my kids going to get a better education experience because the teachers are getting paid more money?
All right, we're going to be very candid with each other, right? And like you said, you're going to get somebody mad at you. Here, you're going to get what you pay for, okay? And so we have brand new teachers right now in the classroom that have no teaching experience, that are busting their butt, that are trying to do the best they can, but they have no teaching experience. What does it take to get a teacher with experience or a teacher with a teaching degree to come in there and go in that classroom? Because that's where the success of a school is based on the leadership of the school. The success of the students is based on within that school, that teacher in that classroom. The success of the overall student is based on what's going on in their home life, the involvement of the parents. So if we can get a higher experience, better quality teacher, our students are going to do better in that school. And you're only going to be able to do that when you can attract those teachers to come out of the fields. We've lost, I can't tell you how many teachers we've lost to the Navy base. We've lost engineers and math instructors and all, because they can walk on Navy base, make $60,000, $65,000.
And they might stay with you if it was somewhat competitive.
Yeah,
like you're not going to hit
right.
You're not going to hit engineer salaries, right?
No, we're not.
You know,
but we need engineers to teach. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the challenge that we have, and what I'd tell people is, because when it's and this is what I call when it's a convenient argument. Okay, people love to compare American education to abroad because they do so much better. Okay, but if you're going to do that, do it across the board. Look at what they pay their teachers comparatively, what they do. Look at their workload. Look at their responsibilities. Look at what they do for those teachers in those countries, and you'll see the vast difference. And so it's not the 47.5 is not bad. That's great. But you've got the first-year teacher making 47.5, the 15-year teacher making 47.5. So if
in Bay County.
It's pretty much going. It's close across the state like that now. Mm-hmm. Because it's called compression. And what's happened is you've lifted the bottom, but you've compressed the top down to the bottom. And I'm not saying that's bad. What I'm saying is we have forgotten the more experienced teachers and haven't rewarded them the way we should be rewarding and compensating them for the job we're asking them to do. And that's the challenge.
Yeah, in a lot of fields, unfortunately, the way you get a pay raise is you leave and get hired at a different company, right? Because the company keeps paying you 3% or 5%, and you got to leave and go somewhere else. But teachers across the state really, I mean, like you say, you can't negotiate at, I say I'm a 10-year teacher, pay me $10,000 more than you're paying a starting teacher, or $20,000 more.
Well, I'm going to say something that a lot of people are going to get mad at me about, and since you and I are making people mad,
it's fine.
And look, I've got a lot of friends that I love dearly and care about dearly that are teaching and have retired from teaching. But here's the problem with public education, and this is the union's going to fuss all over the place about this. But I won't have a say-so on this. So, I mean, this is why I'm telling you. If you're a PE teacher and you're teaching PE and you've been teaching for 15 years, you're making the same amount of teacher that's teaching math or physics for 15 years. Now, I mean,
sure,
that's where that's where the frustration comes in for us. I'm not saying PE is not important. I mean, one of the reasons I'm in public education is because of the teachers, the impact of my life, and the classroom teachers as well. But the problem is we can't find math teachers. We can't find physics teachers. We can't find those kind of talented teachers because they can go and make so much more money. We have got to have the ability to pay those kind of talented teachers more money. Because
can charter schools do that?
Charter schools can do anything they want to do.
So charter schools could go in and pay their science teachers.
Charter schools, and I'm not sure all charter schools do this, but charter schools do not have a pay scale where everybody gets the same amount per se. They can pay them whatever they want to pay them. We're not structured that way.
And you're saying a better system would be one where you can entice the teachers you need with, which is sort of the way it works everywhere else, right?
It's the real world.
In a lot of places.
It's the real world. Yeah. Yes, sir. And again, I'm not trying to pick a fight with the union, and I am certainly not trying to make any of my teacher friends mad. But let me ask you this. How valuable is a first and second grade teacher that is teaching a child to read? Put a price on it. I mean, you can't. I mean, if they know how to do that, God bless them. Heck, I remember just struggling to help my wife potty train my kids. Right. I can't imagine being in a classroom for 180 days with a child and trying to get them to learn to read. And so there's got to be a way to figure out how to get better at that, to make it the compensation more comparable to what we actually need.
What do you think about the direction of education in the state of Florida We certainly have had a lot of discussion at the governor level and right around there about books in the classroom, about what kids are being taught. What do you think?
Well, I see where the governor's coming from with so much of what he's doing, because the parents are just frustrated, and we've gotten way too political in public education, and we now are getting our hands slapped because we've been too political for years. I mean, we should be teaching children the basics and let the parents teach them at home the moral questions and the questions about, I'm just going to throw it out there, sexuality. We shouldn't be counseling kids on whether or not they should be, whether they want to be gay. That's a parent and a child decision. That's not the school system's responsibility. And so I understand that. And there are some books out there that I wouldn't want my grandchildren reading. And so I don't think there's a problem with that. The problem's coming in now, though. This is where the problem's coming in. Public education is being resegregated. And what I mean by that is it's the haves versus the have-nots. And so if I have the ability to take my child across town to a school I want my child to go to, then I can do that. But if I can't do that, my child has got to stay in this school with all the other kids whose parents can't. And so we're ending up with, when I became superintendent in 2008, we had 8 Title I schools. I believe the number's 26 now. We have Title I schools. We have concentrations of areas of our town now where almost every child in that school is in an economic situation that they don't have the benefits everybody else. Now, I understand. Again, I'm not against school choice, but there are consequences to it. And what I mean by that is that if you decide to send your child to a charter school or to a private school, because I believe the state's getting ready to start supporting that, then what about the challenges that leaves the other schools with the concentration of poverty and the social issues that we know exist in the Title I schools?
It's essentially a brain drain, right?
It is but
the smartest necessarily.
Not on the brain drain, because it's
the
not
ones
that these kids
who are
don't have a brain.
Home.
Yes. It's a drain because it used to be a elementary teacher in a regular elementary school would have 2 or 3 students on any given day that were going in some kind of crisis in their home or something. Now it's 7, 8, 9, 10 of those kids in that classroom are dealing with it, and that teacher's just overwhelmed trying to control that and help the class and do all they have to do. In addition, what happens is I go to school Z, that's a charter school or a private school, and I get in trouble, and they kick you out. Where are they going to go?
They're going back to
They're
the public
come
school.
right back to us. Then we're having to deal, and you can do that all day long in those private and charter schools. And so that's the imbalance. That's the unfairness that we continue to deal with more and more problems than we've ever had, and they're not slowing down. Let me tell you this. We had the first day back after Christmas break this year, we had 15 new ELL students, English language learner students, enroll the first day back after Christmas break. None of them can speak English. And they were mostly middle school and high school students, do not speak English, and we're scrambling trying to figure out how to help them. And our ELL population keeps growing. They're from Venezuela, all over Central America, and they're just coming to us, and we're doing the best we can. But those kids aren't going to charter schools, and they're not going to private schools. So, and again, I'm not bad.
Yeah, I mean, are
what
you
I'm
saying
is the concentration is so bad on our schools that we're just overwhelmed with it right now.
Yeah, you're overwhelmed with students who have deeper needs, essentially.
Challenges, yes. And it's not the children's fault.
No. Well, I mean, ultimately, though, are you saying that the success of charter schools, and not all charter schools are successful, but the ones that are successful because they're set up to only allow in stable kids with stable home lives? And, I mean, I know in some instances the charter school says the parent has to volunteer, at the school. And you know as well as I do that some parents are great and happy to volunteer, but you also, at the public school level, you get kids their parents ain't coming.
Okay, but come back to what did I tell you was the number one factor in a child being successful. Parent involvement. And so what's happened is, and again, the charter schools are successful because those kids have parents pushing them and guiding them. I was successful in school because I had a mother that knew how important public education was. I had teachers and administrators and coaches that continued to guide me and encourage me. And so every child needs all that. But when you don't have all those pieces, then you're going to have challenges. And that's what so many of our children now in our schools, the public schools, don't have that. There are so many of the parents that would be the school leaders. They'd be the school advisory council president, the PTA president. They have all left and gone to the private or the charter schools, and that's the drain that we have. I mean, look, every child's smart. They all can do things if they're guided, led, and have the foundation they need. And so that's where the challenge is.
It's 2010, it's December, and you're at a school board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And a guy walks in and starts spray painting on the wall. His name was Clay Duke. What did you think?
I thought it was a drill. I thought Mike Jones is doing this and didn't even ask us, and who's going to clean the paint off that wall? I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, because if you'll remember, he was spraying, and I never noticed the gun. Then he turned around with the gun. Look, I laugh about it now. I was telling somebody the other day, and I've shared this with a lot of people over the years. I should have been dead over 12 years ago. I mean, anybody that shoots at you that close with a hollow point bullet, I later found out is what he was shooting at me. I mean, I'm blessed. I mean, I tell everybody that was a God thing. You don't have to believe, you don't, but I know that God blessed me with more years of my life than I probably deserve. And so, there's so many pieces to that whole thing. Mike Jones, Ginger Littleton, the good Lord. I mean, you tell me, I can't remember whether there are 18 shots in there. I think there were 14 or 18 shots. That number rings in my mind.
He unloaded.
And the only one that was hit was him. Mm-hmm. Well, you tell me. I mean, you tell me.
People were offended too that you said that. I remember, because you said, I think the Lord intervened. I think the Lord saved our lives. And people got up. Speaking of people getting upset, they got upset about that. You remember that?
Oh yeah. Well, I had a guy so mad at me. He called from Oklahoma and said he was going to come finish the job.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But, look, I'm firm in my beliefs. I'm not going to deny what I know happened, and if people are hurt by it, I'm sorry they're hurt by it, but I'm not changing my mind. It's just like I said, you have to make a decision that you think is the best decision at the time. I'm going to make a decision. There are going to be some people that are mad, some people are glad, and some people, no matter what I do, are going to be mad. So
you said to him at one point, let everybody go and just keep me. Do you remember that? What was going through your head at that moment?
Yeah, because I just kept trying to talk to him. I haven't watched the video but a couple of times, okay? And I get kind of goosebumps thinking about it. But when he was standing here, pointed at me, I said to myself, and this is your people that were mad then are really going to get mad now, but he was pointing the gun at me, and there was nothing between us.
Sure.
He was standing there. And I said to myself then, I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get shot. And if I get shot this close, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die. But I know where I'm going to go if I die. And it just brought a calmness over me. That's people say all the time, how did you remain so calm? I said, it wasn't me. I said, the Holy Spirit was with me. And again, you don't have to believe it. And then if you're offended, I can't help it. It was me dealing with it. It wasn't you. And so I know what happened then, and I know how blessed I am. And so, like I said, I've been blessed with 12 more years than anybody else probably deserves.
Well, that's great. And it was one of those things that just, you became, and the school board and Ginger, you all became worldwide famous,
because you want to be famous like that, I can tell you that.
Yeah. I think you were on Anderson Cooper that night, and
to be honest with you, I didn't know who Anderson Cooper was. My daughters all knew who he was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, and we'll move on, but was the fame interesting? I mean, was there any issues there? What's that like?
No, and when people find out about it or want to talk about it, some people think I'm nervous and scared to talk about it, or that I wake up in a cold sweat at night and can't sleep or whatever. I've never had any nightmares over it. I've never woke up in a cold sweat. I tell people I could not sleep the first night because my adrenaline was still just hyper. I mean, I was just, and so, no, I know how blessed I am. And so, I look at that, and it's a chance for the good Lord gave me to thank him every day.
Hurricane Michael hit us in 2018. And you've been dealing with that basically every day since. How much damage did it do to just monetary damage to buildings in the school system?
Hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're still arguing. And we get people that are mad because you haven't done anything to Everett, you haven't done anything to this. We're still arguing with them about Everett, and we
By
can't.
them, you mean FEMA?
FEMA. I tell people I don't use the 4-letter F word, but my 4-letter F word is FEMA, and so the Everett is just one of many that we are protesting. Or I'm not sure what the technical word is, but we are saying, wait a minute, you're not doing that right. And it's just been, it's so crazy. I mean, our team would put the information in what they call portal, and we would put it there, and then they'd lose it. We never got it. Well, we put it in there. We can't find it. We'd have to do it again. I mean, it's just the procedures, the processes, the lack of knowledge and consistency of that group just boggles your mind. It just absolutely boggles your mind. And I know if they hear this, they're going to get mad. And what else are they going to do to us? I mean, drag it on another couple of years. I mean, it would not surprise me if I wasn't dead and gone before it gets finalized, all of it. I mean, that's how long this whole process takes.
People would argue that the school system should have had enough private insurance or insurance paid for to cover everything. Is that feasible?
No, you can't get that much. We've got $100 million private insurance right now when we can't buy anymore.
Did they pay out the $100 million to you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they did. And that's what's so
But you
funny.
had $200 or $300 million worth of damage.
Yes, because I'll never forget what the actuarius said. We had a 1 in 1,000 year event. Well, lucky us. But here's what I would challenge anybody to do. Find out what all the Northwest Florida school districts, what their policy is right now. And I'll bet you nobody has one bigger than ours. And really, we've been better off if we hadn't had it.
Because FEMA would have just come in and paid for everything?
Yeah, they would have basically come in and paid for everything. And it's like that in your neighborhood. How many of you out there had enough insurance to recover everything that you lost in the hurricane? Raise your hand. I mean, nobody did. I mean, because I know people that lost their fence. Well, the insurance won't cover your fence if it's not attached to the house, and
yeah,
it's just. But it's a process. But we're going through it, and we have made great inroads. I mean, we've recovered. I'd say about half of it probably, but there's still a lot more to go.
And then, we moved on from that experience. We're recovering, and then COVID happens in 2020, and the schools are shut down. What would you do differently if you had the authority to do it differently, dealing with a pandemic like COVID?
Everybody's got a hindsight. I mean, I'm not going to question what anybody did. Nobody knew. Nobody's ever done anything like that before. I was shocked. And I can't remember if you and I have talked about this, but the Friday before spring break at 8 o'clock that morning, we get a phone call from the Commissioner of Education, and it said, quote unquote, do not close schools. Don't do anything, because everybody across the country then was closing schools. I mean, this is when it all really first started happening. 3 o'clock that afternoon, the same people have a conference call with all of us and say, close schools for 2 weeks. I mean, and from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, from 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock that afternoon, the whole mindset changed. What caused that change? Social media. I mean, people were freaking out. I think that the reaction and everything that happened with COVID was driven by social media. I firmly believe that. I mean, because if you remember at the time, it wasn't widespread, and people were predicting what was going to happen and how bad it was going to be. And so that's what I would caution is you can't overreact to social media. And again, I'm not blaming Democrats, not blaming Republicans, not picking on CDC, not picking on any doctor. But I mean, I could call one doctor up and he'd tell me one thing, call another doctor up and he'd tell me something else. And so there's no right answer to any of this. And so we were all.
But everybody
together.
thinks they have the right answer.
Everybody thinks they have it, including the woman I just saw. This, and I'm not getting near you because I don't want to get COVID. I don't have a degree in medicine.
No, neither do I. And I certainly don't know what the right answer is. Coming out of that, you've been a strong advocate for mental health, and we've already talked about what students in Bay County are dealing with at home. It seems like though that the state has responded pretty strongly. They've sent some money this way, a lot of money, to deal with sort of the mental health challenges our students are facing. So where is that at? Where does that stand right now, you think?
We were advocating for the state, the superintendents in the state for years before Parkland. And then when the tragedy at Parkland happened, the legislators realized we knew what we were talking about, and they started sending more mental health money. In fact, they have even sent more, and the governor's recommending even an increase next year in it. The blessing that we have, if you want to call it a blessing, was the hurricane enabled us to get some funding for mental health because of the challenges we had because of the hurricane. So we were ramped up for that before COVID hit. And since then, our teams worked really hard. We've not only got state funding, but we've gotten federal funding, many grants to be able to continue to offer this. You would not believe, I think we've had, I want to guess, approximately 30 students Baker Acted this year, which the number is a little bit higher at this point than last year. But most of those are elementary kids. And when I say Baker Acted, what I mean,
people don't know what that means.
Yeah, it means that there are 2 certified people that work for us that can Baker Act a child, which means they believe, it's their professional opinion, that this child could potentially harm themselves or harm someone else. And before they get to that, even a law enforcement officer can do it just like that. Before they get to that, though, there's processes and steps. They just don't walk in there and say, all right, tell me what you're thinking, and then all of a sudden they do it. Sometimes it takes 2 hours to go through the process to figure out what the needs of that child are. And so while you would think that the highest number would be an older child that would have that need, it's really the younger ones. It's really the younger ones that come up with these very detailed, specific plans to either harm themselves or harm someone else. And unfortunately, I know about a lot of those plans. I mean, I get the information. I don't ask for names because I don't get into that detail, but I ask for details about what the child's dealing with or whatever, and it'll break your heart. I mean, some of the things. Almost every one of them, Brady, comes back to what I said earlier. Almost every one of them do not have a mom and dad in the home, or they're being raised by a grandmother or somebody that's not their parents. And so the problems stem to the breakup of the home. And that's where most of these problems are coming from with these kids. And the schools can't fix this. We can't fix this. We get blamed for it an awful lot, but we can't fix it. And that's where I feel very, very sorry for so many of these children that are facing these things.
So the way this works is you retire on July 31st. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And then there's not an election until November 2024.
Well, there'll probably be a primary in August.
In August, right. Sorry, there is a primary. But most likely, Governor Ron DeSantis will appoint someone.
Oh, not most likely. He will.
He will?
Yeah.
Have you guys asked him to give him any guidance?
No.
Suggested this person or that person?
You're going to laugh at this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to send him my resignation letter. And it's just, appreciate the service. And I mean, there was nothing negative, bad. It was just very to the point when I'm retiring. And so my assistant was trying to get a email address or a fax number. And she tried for over an hour to get it. And finally, they just said, just mail it. So it's in the mail. I'm sure his office will get it very soon. But I know how busy the governor's office is. But the governor will appoint someone. The process they go through, and I just know this because I've seen it across the state in different positions, and we've had some here in Bay County. People that are interested in it will apply for it, and they will go through those applicants. and then the governor will make the final decision.
What would you tell the person that gets selected for this role? What would your
Be careful
advice
what
be?
you ask for. Well, I will tell you this. It's the highlight of my career to be able to serve and do this job. I love being my children. I told you that's the best job I could ever have, but being superintendent has just been very special. But it's because of the people I got to work with and surround myself with. There are amazing people in this school district that teach our children in the classroom, that drive the buses, that do every job that's needed to help our kids be successful. And we know all the inside stories. We know about the extra 10 miles some of these people go to help our children and to love and nurture them. And so that's what's really been fun, is to be a part of that large group that does so much for all the kids. And that's what I've been blessed with for the 41 years I've been in the district.
So what's retirement look like? What you got planned?
I've got 13 grandchildren. And so my over-under is 14. My youngest name is, I got to call out my new little girl, is Edie Pearl. Now, my youngest daughter and her husband, Ben, they tried to come up with a Southern name, and that's the best they could do was Edie Pearl. God bless her. I saw her the other day without a bow on her head, and I didn't recognize her. So, but no, we've got, in the thing, Brady, and I think grandparents will understand this. I miss so much because I've had 2 grandchildren graduate from high school, and I couldn't go to their graduation. I've got a music recital coming up in a couple months, and I can't go to it because I got a school board meeting. My wife gets to go to all these things. I don't get to go to them. Mm-hmm. And so I miss those things. I really do. I miss going to ball games and watching kids. None of my grandkids live in town.
Oh, really?
I've got them spread not too far away. Alabama. 2 of them live in Alabama, different parts. One of them lives in Tallahassee. And so I just, life's too short. I know it's time. And so I want to do more things like that. I'm going to do something else with the church. I teach Sunday school now, but we're going to do something else. And my wife and I are going to travel a little bit.
Well, Bill, congrats.
Thank you.
We're all hoping to get there someday.
Yep.
So good luck. And I'll just let you, if there's anything else you want to say to folks, I'll let you say it.
Well, I just appreciate being able to work, live, and play here in Bay County. I've lived here since 1970, and it's been a great blessing. And I just want to thank the citizens for giving me this opportunity. I wish everyone the best, but take care of our kids. Take care of those kids you've got that you're responsible for. There's nothing more important and more valuable than those children.
Thanks, Bill. I want to thank our audience for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you for watching 13 Now. For more information on this live stream, visit mypanhandle.com. Stay updated with all of the Panhandle's news, weather, sports, and more by downloading our 13 Now news app, available on all smart devices.